Gerald Celente. He was last with us in the year 2000. The director and founder of the Trends Research Institute, he describes himself as unencumbered by political dogma or conventional wisdom. There's very few of us can say that about ourselves. The Trends Research Institute analyzes world-shaping events and forecasts tomorrow's trends with a network of 25 experts whose range and experience rivals most top universities. This research has led Gerald to develop radical views that disturb politicians as much as they chart new opportunities for every one of us. Let the data speak for itself is one of his phrases, and let us attack the future before it attacks us. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Gerald Celente.
Why am I coming out dancing? Well, I'm a trend forecaster. And I live in upstate New York, about 2 hours north of New York City, in a little village called Rhinebeck. I'm originally a Bronx cat, but we social climbed. And I have an old friend up in Rhinebeck, Charles. He's 91 years old. And I run into him in town going to the post office, and he says to me, "Well, how you doing, Gerald?" I said, "How am I doing? Man, look what's going on. Tsunamis, hurricanes, cyclones, earthquakes, mad cow disease, bird flu, SARS, war, terrorism." And Charles looks at me and says, "Cheer up, there's no hope." So that's why I'm dancing. It's time to rock easy. Relax yourself. I'm a trend forecaster, and tracking trends is a way of seeing where we are, understanding how we got here, and then to anticipate where we're going so that you can develop products, strategies, and services in anticipation of what the future may bring. Nobody can predict the future. There are too many wild cards out there. It's impossible. But you can see the face of the future. You can see it in yourselves. We're all doing what we're doing in life because of decisions that we've made. And then the wild cards get thrown in there. You can see the face of the future. The great scholar Friedrich von Schiller said, "In today already walks tomorrow." We say current events form future trends. And the trend that I see now as a trend forecaster is I believe that the new millennium is a new age. Not a new age of airbrush unicorns. It's a global age, but global in more than just trade. Global in the understanding that all things are connected. Or as Chief Seattle said, all things are connected like the blood which unites us all. So we developed a system that we call globalnomic. And globalnomic means making connections between different fields, from the Latin word globus, which means including the entire world, and mnemon, the Greek derivative, which means to manage. Trends can be managed. Again, we will try to understand what's going on today. We see how we got here, and then we anticipate the future, what the future may bring to develop products and services. One of the problems that people have in looking at trends is they're only interested in what they do. And what we say is that opportunity misses those who view the world through the eyes of their profession. You should know your profession. You shouldn't have to be studying it all the time and only. You should be practicing it all the time. And you should be learning about it all the time. But you have to learn about those other social, economic, political, environmental, cultural, socioeconomic, geopolitical trends that are also developing. And as Tom mentioned, I'm a political atheist. Both parties where I come from are self-serving and, to me, equally repulsive. I'll have nothing to do with them. I look at life for the way it is and not the way I want it to be. If you have a political ideology, you've already clouded the diagnosis. I don't look at things for what I believe, what I want, what I hope. It's like going to a doctor. He gives you the diagnosis. You don't call him an SOB when you don't like what you hear. But people do that when you talk about social, political, and economic issues that they don't want to hear. They become angry about it. Hey, rock easy. Relax yourself. I'm only given the diagnosis. I look at the facts that are available, as we do at the Trends Research Institute, on a global basis, and then we just give the diagnosis. And that's what I'm going to do today about the diagnosis of the trends shaping the future. And there's a reason why people don't track trends. They say they do, but they're looking at their industry. Number one is nobody teaches us. There's not one trend research institute within a university in the United States. There's not one trend tracking course from Columbia, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Vassar, Bard. Name them. There isn't any. The future is off limits. The way I learned to track trends was from my dear father, may his soul rest in peace. I was one of 7 kids, and I was for the longest time the baby. I was number 5. And then in those days, my mother, may she also rest in peace, she had 2 change-of-life children, they called them. And I was a lunatic. They couldn't tie me down. Saturdays came, boy, she shipped me off with my father. And he had a beautiful 1957 Cadillac. Not like these moron mobiles that these rap thugs drive around in. This was sleek. It was hot, black Coupe de Ville, black and white interior. And I'm a little kid. And I loved being with my dad. And I'd start talking to him, and I'd say something. And he'd look over at me, and he'd give me this look. And in Italian, he'd say, Pappagallo, parrot, think for yourself. Stop repeating what everybody else is saying. Whoa. It wasn't, son, we have to talk. It wasn't that, And I didn't want to make a fool of myself. So I learned to think for myself. It's what you've heard in different variations from the other speakers. Think for yourself. These are critical times. Think for yourself. The fire in the North Tower is under control, said the fire marshals at 9/11. Go back to your offices. Out of 140 emergency calls made, 9/11 calls made on 911, the authorities told the people, these are reported, 138 of them, they said, stay where you are. Help is on the way. Pappagallo, think for yourself. And these are the times that demand that. The information is there. Don't take this stuff personally. You could become sad about the diagnosis, but don't become angry. Don't become bitter. Or you could become joyous of the diagnosis, that the patient is healthy. And the other thing that people talk about is thinking outside the box. What box? As soon as you start thinking outside a box, you've already restricted your thinking capabilities. There is no box. There are no rules. This is the global age. All things are connected like the blood which unites us all. And now I'm going to talk about some world trends. We're going to move around social, economic, political, geopolitical, and move through the variety of them. And let's pick the biggest hot spot right now. The Middle East. Let's start with Iraq. I'm not a Monday morning quarterback. We have a publication, the Trends Journal. I'm the author of a number of books, Trend Tracking, Trends 2000. Most of what I say we had forecast years ago. And one of them is the Iraq War, that we had forecast what would happen 1 month before the war. This was February 18th, 2003. Quote, "While the victory on the battlefield may be swift considering the massive military power of the coalition forces, the war against Iraq will eventually be lost. Iraqi generals have promised to launch unrelenting suicide attacks against coalition forces and have vowed to fight down to the last man to repel invaders. Thus, a guerrilla war will drag on until they have regained control of their country." 1 year later, on December 2nd, 2004, Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld said, quote, "If you're asking, was there any kind of understanding or agreement that there would likely be a long insurgency afterwards, I don't believe that anyone would say that." Well, we did. Here's President Bush last week. "Despite setbacks and missteps," man, this is $300 billion of my money, my country's money. Over 100,000 Iraqi people dead, according to The Lancet, the British publication, and no end in sight, and you're calling these, setbacks and missteps. I strongly believe we did and are doing the right thing. Who could get away with this stuff? Which one of you people in your job, hey, sorry, Jack, just lost you a couple of $1 million, but hey, chill out. A misstep, everything is gonna be fine. My bonus, I want to talk about my bonus. And then we heard from Tony Blair the same day. And by the way, I take offense to the way people talk about Bush when they don't talk about Blair the same way. I mean, the only difference between Blair and Bush is, Blair knows how to carry himself well and has that English diction that everybody likes. But here's what he said. He said, "Why Iraq has been difficult is the determination of our opponents to defeat us." Difficult because of the determination of your opponents to defeat you? You're an occupying country. They don't like you there and they're going to kill you. It's been difficult. Now I know why Mark Twain said, "Sometimes I wonder if the world is being run by smart people who are putting us on, or imbeciles who really mean it." So it's easy for me to be a political atheist. Hey, I'm not a member of your crew. America can start a war, and they can stop a war, but they can't win a war. It's the global age. It's a war of weapons of mass destruction. They simply don't have the numbers to win wars. They lost in Vietnam. Eisenhower was smart enough to know they couldn't repel millions of Chinese coming over the North Korean horizon. But despite unfounded reasons from the Trends Journal, that was going over a year ago, year and a half, for going to war and the grievous administration failures to prepare for the resistance, provide the support to fight it, or calculate how long it would last, an American majority still supports the troops in their president's decisions, and there is no mass media, major politician, or major organization making the headline news in opposition of the war. And people talk about, well, how about, Bill Clinton? Oh, Bill Clinton, the Hill Clintons, yeah. Bill Clinton bombed Iraq on a weekly basis for 8 years. People forget this. The night before his his impeachment, they launched 400 cruise missiles on Baghdad, and with the coalition forces of the willing, they also carpet bombed the Fertile Crescent for 7 days. Madeleine Albright, the Secretary of State at the time, was asked by Leslie Stahl on CBS's 60 Minutes, was the price of sanctions, U.S. sanctions, UN sanctions, but U.S. enforced, was it worth the price of 500,000 dead Iraqi children under the age of 5? This is according to the UN. Madeleine Albright said it was worth the price. Hey, why don't they like America over there? Can't figure it out. And then we'll move over to Iran. They have a little thing here. How's this thing work? Boop, boop. I never did one of these before. There it is, Iran. Iran. 57% of the American people, according to a recent LA Times, Bloomberg News poll, want to attack Iran to knock out their nuclear facilities. Great. Yeah, you'll win that one, too. It'll be the beginning of World War III. This is the Crusades 2000, and I don't want to go into a lot of these things that we had forecast would happen in my book, Trends 2000. We said, when we first forecast Crusades 2000, over a decade ago, we wrote, quote, the formal battle lines for the new Crusades had been drawn when Israel was created in 1948, but Israel, however complex politically and militarily, was no more than the latest episode in a conflict going back more than 1,000 years. This is the Ninth Crusade. And the white guys don't get it. They lost the other 8. Oh, let me do it again. Let me do it again. You're going to lose. These are the Persians and the Arabs. Have respect. As His Majesty, the Prince, said yesterday about respect. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And then there's these other areas around. What do we have over here? Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan. There's a lot of things going on there about oil pipelines, about military alliances. And you know the word stan is a suffix for home of. So it's home of the Afghans, home of the Tajiks, home of the Uzbeks. And I come from Now, I heard Guy Kawasaki use the word suck. Now, you could use whatever word you want to say that, but here's the leader of the dumb fuckistanians. And he's giving the national salute that dumb fuckistanians give. Here's the dumb fuckistanian that ran against him. And then the world asked, how can 54,087 people be so dumb? That's easy. Here they are, folks. I'm not making this stuff up. 65% of the American people are overweight, over a third are obese. They say in 10 years, over a third will be obese and 80% will be overweight. And why? Because you are what you eat. And here they are, manja manja. And when you're living there, this is where you shop. That's a quick overview of what's going on back there. Now, I want to back this up with facts, because I'm not an American hater. I love America. And it breaks my heart to see what's going on. Matter of fact, I wrote a book about it. It's called What Zidzi Gave Honey Boy. Zidzi is the Neapolitan dialect for auntie. And Zidzi, may she rest in peace, she just passed away recently. She was my aunt. And if I were to rename this book, I would have called it When America Lost Its Soul. You want to get an American angry? Well, first of all, when I say America lost its soul, I know what America was. I grew up there. I know the country. Nobody's going to tell me. I was there, and I know what it is now. And here's what it is. And you want to make an American angry, by the way, just say, hey, you're not number one. Oh, well, they hit the roof. And you're not the best country in the world. Oh, they'll really go nuts. And you know, when you're number one and you're the best, you know everything. Nobody can tell you anything. And that attitude permeates from the top to the bottom, to the guy that owns the delicatessen. You're telling me? You're going to tell me? How about these media guys? Hey, yeah, they know everything. They know everything. They're not number one. When it comes to quality of life, The Economist, really a left-wing magazine, ranks the United States 13th. It's 24th in longevity, 42nd in infant mortality, and 37th in health care, according to the World Health Organization and that other subversive group, the CIA World Factbook. The U.S. comes in 8th on the UN's Human Development Index, which measures living conditions, healthcare systems, educational attainment, housing, cultural and recreational facilities, and level of public safety. The Heritage Foundation, a self-proclaimed conservative group, ranks America 12th in economic freedom, and the World Economic Forum ranks the U.S. 47th among the world's most competitive economies. And it dropped from first to 5th in information technology. So much about the banter about the U.S. leading in that field. The Organization for Economic and Community Development, OECD, says American students rank behind industrialized and advanced nations when it comes to math, science, and literacy, and ranks the U.S. 10th in the percentage of adults with high school degrees. The gap between the rich and the poor is the widest in the U.S. of any of the industrialized nations. 0.5% of Americans, I'm not great at math, but I know that's really a small number, own 40% of the country's assets, and 0.1% reaped 43% of the latest round of tax benefits, according to the OECD. The OECD also reports that the United States is now 3rd among the most unequal industrialized societies after Russia and Mexico. I could keep going on, but I'm not going to. America also ranks number 1 in prescription drug use, according to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Our debt level is 200% times the gross domestic product. Those are levels worse than during the Depression. $8 trillion worth of debt. But we do rank one in obesity. Half the population in Norway, roughly, is in jails. And it's a very bleak situation, to say the least. One that does not make you feel terrific about what's going on over there. We rank just behind, I think there's China, Iran, Vietnam, and then the United States for the most amount of executions. So America's not number one, and that's a major trend shaping the world. And so as we look at these trends and we see what's going on, I mention this too, because people, they say to me, but we look at America as the beacon of democracy. They've done so much, and yes, they have. And as I said, it breaks my heart. They're not a democracy. They're a plutocracy. When I was a kid growing up, I remember the Cold War. You talk about propaganda. I never saw a good-looking Russian chick, man. They always had these big ladies throwing cabbage on the back of trucks, That's what propaganda will do to you. And all of a sudden, the end of the Cold War, whoa, where were they? Wow, capitalism must be great. Look what they sprouted up, How did I get here? What was I doing? It was about the Cold War and growing up in the Cold War and propaganda and talking about the Soviet Union. They say, they had an election in the Soviet Union. They have a one-party system. 98% of the people got reelected. Yeah, just like in America. That's the number, folks. 98% get reelected of the incumbents in the general election. It's a plutocracy. You have to be either rich or suck up to special interests to get to the top. And it crosses party lines. Do you know that in one night in 2000, when George Bush was running against Al Gore, one night, George Bush raised $20 million. It's a plutocracy. The next week, Al Gore beat him. He raked in $26 million. It's not a beacon of democracy. Our voting machines don't work. They demand that the international observers go to foreign countries to make sure they have free elections. They send the Carter Center over. The Carter Center wanted to monitor the last elections. They wouldn't let them. That's what's happened to America. Culturally, politically, economically, philosophically, intellectually, there's nothing right now for you to take from that country or to use as a model for advancement. Did you see the Oscars? I love the arrogance of the Oscars. And the Oscars nominate for the best song, "It's Hard Out Here for a Pimp." What, are you kidding me? Are you making this stuff up? I wonder why people don't go to the movies. America's in a dead zone. They're risk averse. Innovation is the key to the future. And that's a place that's dead on arrival. Oh, the big movies. Hey, King Kong 3. Wait, blow me over, man. Look, the guy fell again. Wow. Plane shot him down. Wow. Hey. Mission Impossible 3. Whoa, I loved 1 and 2. Oh, they're bringing back Dallas. John Travolta's got a big movie. Hey, I wonder who shot JR. This is what the people like. And that's a phrase they use all the time. This is what the people like. What people? The politicians, they go like this. What people? Hey, what people? You know why they go like this? They all do it. Because Jack Kennedy used to go like that. Pappagallo. What people like that? So in developing product and services and looking to new markets and new opportunities, where do you go? Who are these people that they're talking about? To succeed in the 21st century, it's not going to that people. America is a first, second, and third world nation. You saw the face of America when you saw Katrina. So in developing product and services and looking at the global age, let us understand that the game has changed. You cannot compete selling commodity prices, items, to this is what the people like group and expect to make money. In order to succeed in the 21st century, innovation, new thinking, new development is going to be what's necessary. And that kind of development is going to target, and I'm not an elitist saying this, a guy that grew up in the Bronx, not far from the White Castle hamburger, if any of you know where that was. You have to go for the 25% of the world population that has the money. And the way you do that is you develop product and services and strategies to tie into people's needs and wants, not just wants. I want this, I want that. But do you need it? What do they need? What do they need? And that they want? Well, probably all of us spend a lot of hours sitting in a chair. I want a good chair, and I need one. I don't want a cheap one. What's a need and a want? Well, look at the trends. Look at the global trends shaping the future. Throughout Europe and the US, it's an aging demographic. Everybody's getting older. What kind of products and services are they going to need? What kind of ergonomic products and services? They're going to need them. It's a single society. It's a society without family support. And this is not just throughout Europe and the rest of the world. So what kind of products and services do you make? Keep thinking about where to follow the money, and all you have to do is look at Walmart's. Where's Walmart? I had them here a minute ago. Here it is. This it? No, I lost my little, oh, here it is. Walmart's. Walmart's is having difficulty making money now. They can't make money selling commodity-priced items. Do you know that they sell more organic milk than anybody else in the United States? And they're now expanding their organic produce line. All things are connected. They're expanding, they can't make money, and they're selling more organic produce. Bird flu, mad cow, SARS. One of the great trends of the 21st century, and we'd written about this about a decade ago, we called it the new black plagues. These are the pandemics that they're talking about. Look what happened to poultry sales in France after the scare of bird flu, and they export a lot of poultry. Poof, it was over. It was gone. From the source, a major trend. From the source, quality products. That's how you're going to compete in the new millennium. This is what the people want. That group of people. I went back talking before about Hollywood. Content is king, and they can't do it. The next big trend that's shaping the world in the technological field as we see it, you already seen the beginnings with, cell phones and everything, have the palm, with broadcast quality transmission. The real news is going to come when it comes to your widescreen TV. And you don't only have 100 channels, 200 channels, you have a world wide web of channels. This is going to be dramatic, and it's going to be revolutionary. And it's going to break the back. The only reason the networks in Hollywood and other institutions are in power is because they control distribution. With the web, nobody controls, at this point, distribution. So you're going to see that is an area that we believe the entertainment area is going to be one of the biggest areas to key into. And in staying with that theme of widescreen TV, real interaction, distance learning, Azim Premji, the richest man in India, he said, among other things, "You glorify your CEOs, they're like kings." This is the richest man in India. And then he went on to say, in competition with the rest of the world, he still sees America forging ahead. He said, you have a creative talent and a creative ability there. And your universities teach differently than the rest of the world. And I'm saying to myself, what is this guy? What is he out of his mind? What's he talking about? It's become a college industrial complex. And I started, I Googled him up. He was right. He went to Stanford in 1966. I was there, and not Stanford, but in the university system. It was that America. It was that free spirit. I had a French friend, Marie-Pierre. She was Parisian, and they used to ask her, when did you come to America, Marie-Pierre? And she used to say, when they were going like this. And she said, why would anyone want to live in Paris in the 70s when there was New York? And I remember that in New York. It's not the same educational system. So where does this bring us? Distance learning. It's going to be one of the greatest trends of the 21st century. It won't be totally distance learning. It'll be an appendage onto the brick and mortar and onto distance learning. And they're educating Chinese and Indians in distance learning software that's unrivaled in the rest of the world. This is something that it's the mind, the ability to think for yourself that could create whatever you want on this World Wide Web. Numbers don't count. That to us is a huge trend that's going to develop and continue to grow. And by the way, when I talk about America and I talk about the sadness that I have, I also know that if the freedom to think and the freedom to be yourself and the freedom to take risk and to be innovative and to have the courage and the passion, as His Royal Highness said yesterday, to do that, America could emerge and become the epicenter of the next Renaissance. The creative talent is there, and I know a lot of them, and they're all over, and I don't know a lot of them. But I know what's bubbling beneath the surface. And that Renaissance could happen in any country at any time when the true meaning of the human spirit is unleashed. And it could happen. And it's the freedom of the mind, the passion, as the Crown Prince said, to express it, the heart feeling what the mind knows. It's innovation. And innovation is going to be the key in the 21st century, not numbers. Right now, Europe, United States, we can outperform China. Can't beat them on commodity-priced items. It's not going to happen. They got the numbers. But they're gearing up. And innovation is the next step because it's falling behind in a lot of places. Again, it's not happening in the States. I talked about bird flu and mad cow and all of these other things. Pandemics, the whole business around it is going to be huge as well. 38 new diseases in the last 25 years have mutated from animal to animal to animal to human. Clean foods, I cannot emphasize that enough. And along with that, immune system buildup. Those are key phrases, key thoughts, staying healthy in a poisoned world. And again, of the 4 elements, I believe I touched on 3 of them from His Royal Highness. The other one was the environment in one of them. And what is the environment? It's more than air and trees and water and land. It's the host where our soul resides in this human state. How can we desecrate it? Anything having to do with those areas of development, food and beverage. America and a lot of the world, the 25% solution that I called it, they're ready to put their money where their mouth is and where their mind is. My mantra, and everywhere I go, whether it's in the States or around the world, and talking to people that are interested in innovation, have vision, is don't let your quality down. Water. Water, $70 billion marketplace. It's going to continue to grow. There's droughts throughout the world. The southwest of the United States. Hey, Norway, you got some water over here. I'm not afraid to drink this stuff, you know. 1 out of every $5. And I talk about the U.S. a lot, of course, although we're talking about other trends, because they're the biggest consumers around the world. And 5% of the population, you know the numbers, 20% of the energy, and it keeps going on. Ergonomics. My Aunt Zidzi, she used to say, she used to get herself up, push herself up from the chair. She had severe phlebitis. She could hardly walk. And she used to say in Italian, "Vecchiaia caronia." Getting old is a bitch. And when my dear father may, you know, even in his dying years, there was one step down to the kitchen. And I used to go over and visit him, you know, and I'd bring him over food. And I opened up the freezer one day, and the freezer's filled with these frozen dinners. This is my father, my great Italian cook. "Hey, Pop, what are you doing?" He said, "Son, I can't walk down to make anything anymore." One step, one step, one step. Aging population. Which brings me to another trend. New millennium housing. One level. An aging population. What do they do in the States? They build these McMansions. What are they thinking about? You know, so what are they going to do with these things? One level. Using materials that are easy to maintain, self-sustaining houses. I would venture to say that the greatest trend, you know, it goes back to the basics. Food, clothing, and shelter. Talk about the elderly, my father not being able to eat. How about food for the elderly? Very nutritious in value. Low, they call it, easy to digest, low stress diet, so the system doesn't do a lot of work to work the food through, you know, so you're using the nutrients and the elements to build the body and stay healthy. These are all looking for an aging population, but also an understanding how the environment is changing. Modular homes, huge business, but what are they doing? They're building these like Victorian replicas. How about 21st century building? You're not going to make a lot of money exporting timber, but you are going to make a lot of money exporting modular houses, which they love all over the world, in 21st century smart houses. Low maintenance, one level, self-sustaining energy, easy to maintain. This is what the people are looking for. Which brings me to another great trend when you talk about self-sustaining and listening to the other speakers and talking about engineering yourself out of business to find a new business. There's going to be an alternative energy. And someday oil is going to be as rudimentary as going to these ports around the world that used to be noted for their whale oil and whale processing. And we're forecasting that it's going to happen when gasoline hits $4 a barrel in the U.S. Necessity is the mother of invention. They have not been spending any money on alternative energy development. And I'm not talking about wind and solar and geothermal. I'm talking about permanent clusters, charged magnets, hydrino power, zero-point energy, and yes, even cold fusion. It's going to happen. And the invention is going to be as great as the discovery of fire and the invention of the wheel. It hasn't happened because the resources have not gone into it. Are you prepared for the future? And by the way, I would recommend with an innovative Norway and an InnoTown of innovation to hold the world's first real alternative energy conference, bringing in the different minds that are not attached to special interests, that have the engineering zeal, because it's going to change, and you don't want to be IBM when there's going to be Mac. We all know the story. Water purification systems. Oh, by the way, there's a great website to go to. Infinite Energy, infinite-energy.com. This is where we get a lot of our information from. There's a lot of breakthrough things happening, and it doesn't make the major media. By the way, with the major media, the news in the States is a joke. And that's how I began to write this book. Look at this beautiful woman. Look at that face. I used to go visit her on my trips from New York City back up to Rhinebeck. She lived in Yonkers. And I walk in one day, and I change my clothes out of my suit and stuff, and I go in the kitchen, I'm washing dishes. And she said, sit down, you're my guest. I said, Zizzy, let me watch. And television's blaring. She couldn't hear anymore. And she said to me, Gerald, I listened to the news all day yesterday. This beautiful old lady. What a bunch of shit. They must think we're all morons. And that's the American news, made for morons. They're not reporting on the advancements. The advancements are happening. It's time to move ahead. Those that get caught in the undertow of the 20th century are going to be the losers. The 20th century belonged to America. It will not own the 21st century. Will it be China? Will it be India? We doubt it. We could talk about the economic strategies, but there are socio-political, environmental, and there's a lot of wild cards in the deck. According to the Chinese government, in 2004, there were 24,000 riots and major demonstrations. Things don't go so smoothly. Who will be the companies and countries, the leaders of the new millennium? Who will their names be? I contend, and we do at the Trends Research Institute, that there won't be one. There'll be many. New thinking, that's New Zealand's, by the way, New Zealand's mantra. New Zealand, new thinking. Innovative Norway. You are among the elite few. And what companies out there are also thinking like this and really putting their money where their mind is in preparation for the new millennium? Quick couple of other things. We're forecasting there are going to be 4 major currencies in the world: the euro, the dollar, the Asian, and the Latino. And what's going on, the trends shaping the future in Latin America are huge. The movements in Venezuela, again, I don't like that guy. It's not the issue. Take it easy. Evo Morales in Bolivia. Michelle Bachelet in Chile. Kirchner in Argentina. Lula in Brazil. Huge populist movements, they call them. Populist movements. These mean that people are tired of getting screwed over and they want some of it back. And it's not going to stop. The CEOs in the United States, they're the Louis XIVs of the 21st century. When I began my career in the 70s, the gap between the average worker and the CEO was 40 to 1. Today, depending on whose numbers you're looking at, it ranges anywhere between 450 to 1 to 550 to 1. Those are some of the things to look at. And as we're looking at these changes, also look at what's happening to gold. Gold has its own language. I began my career, by the way, I don't have time to get into it now, But my first buy of gold was $187.50 an ounce in the 1970s. I ran a very small bet, almost, to above $750,000. And then one day I woke up. I also bought at the very top. I woke up one morning and lost $220,000. And the next day I lost like $180,000. So when these dot-com things happen and all these real estate bubbles, I know what it feels like to get hit over the head. And I've been watching gold since that time. Gold has its own language. It has no heart, it has no feelings. And that's the way it's reacting now. And it's saying that it doesn't have trust in the dollar, it doesn't have trust in the geopolitical situation of the world, and we're forecasting that gold's going to go beyond $1,000 an ounce and possibly hit into the 2000 mark. When I was trading back then, Europe wasn't what it is today. There were hardly any players from Europe, hardly any from Japan. It was the US. Now they've just added the Chinese in the market. India, boy, the Indians love gold. Russia, it's a whole new market. You just threw another 3 billion people playing for a commodity that hasn't been mined much in the 90s and strong demand. The 25% solution, the quality sector, keep thinking about it, keep moving toward it. With a few exceptions, you have to export value. That's the new millennium. The list is long of the opportunities, the crusades, the major trends, the end of the empire in America, an aging population, cyber world, entertainment, and education, health, world migration. Poof, that's a huge one too. My God, that's not going to stop. And it's, you look at the numbers. They say that humans were created 100,000 years ago. Whatever number you want to put on, it was a long time ago. It took from 100,000 to 1900 to put 1.5 billion people on the planet. From 1900 to now, we've added 5 billion people. Well, I'm a population expert. Get out of here. Nobody's a population expert. Nobody's ever dealt with these numbers before. Look what's going on in the States. I love the illegal aliens. I want to figure out, it's like a legal alien, like if they come from Zarnak or someplace, or Mars. Oh, they came in a spaceship. They're legal aliens, how they use this language. It's going to be a major issue all over the world. Prepare for it now. The future is coming. Aristotle said, the strength of a nation is built on the strength of its middle class. This isn't being xenophobic or hatred or anything else. These are facts. Bigger in the new millennium is not better. Numbers don't always count. 4 million free minds could outmaneuver 1.3 billion controlled. The future is coming, and we're all seeing it before us. And the key to survival in the 21st century is innovation. To become a major player, remember, don't let your quality down. The future is in your hands. Don't drop it. Because if you do, you might lose it.
Do you know what it means to miss New Orleans and miss it each night and day? I know I'm not wrong. The feeling getting stronger the longer I stay away. I miss the moss-covered vines, the tall sugar pines, where mockingbirds used to sing.
What the Crown Prince said yesterday, the environment, courage, 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 the great philosophers, Goethe, whatever you can do or dream you can, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Passion, respect. It didn't happen in my country, and it breaks my heart. The future's in your hands. Anyone that says differently is trying to rob from you the God that lives within you. Don't let anybody take it away. And I want to thank Innovative Norway for your visionary mission. And Cecilia and Dag, a special thanks. One for having me back to this beautiful country. And for creating InnoTown. Innovation. The only town on earth with new millennium thinking. As we say in Italian, buona salute per 100 anni, good health for 100 years. And remember, rock easy, relax yourself. Thank you very much.